So why do you come to this Sunday spiritualist service? Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see all of you here, in person and online. And many of you have been coming for years, but has anyone asked you why? Some of you might say it's because you feel uplifted by the service. Some like the sense of community, or a sense of spiritual connectedness. Some look forward to the meditation, like the one you just had. Or is it because everyone gets a reading? Maybe that's why. Spiritualism as a religion proves continuity of life, meaning life after death. We prove this by giving spiritual greetings during service. Another word for this is mediumship. Spiritualism's definition of mediumship is the natural ability of every person using natural laws to communicate with the spirit side of life. Although, when you look up mediumship in Wikipedia, it says mediumship is a pseudoscience, practice of communicating with spirits of the dead or spirits of the familiar with humans. For those who may want a refresher on the definition of pseudoscience, pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. So Wikipedia says that mediumship is not scientifically proven, yet we as spiritualists believe mediumship is scientifically proven. We say that when we recite the fifth principle. We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomena of spiritualism, which means through mediumship. So I'm going to tell you about a recent scientific experiment on mediumship. It did not get a lot of press, so you may not have heard of it. This mediumship experiment was supported by the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. Who is this Bigelow guy? Does anybody know who he is? He's an aerospace entrepreneur. He founded this Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies in April of 2020 to support research into both the survival of human consciousness after physical death, and based on data from such studies, the nature of the afterlife. For decades, Robert Bigelow has supported serious investigations into consciousness and manifestations of unusual phenomena that are not yet recognized by mainstream science. Or you may also recognize Bigelow's name from the TV show Skinwalker Ranch, located in Utah, where unusual paranormal things happen on this ranch owned by Robert Bigelow. While others call mediumship a pseudoscience, Bigelow wants to develop scientific experiments to test mediums. The Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies put out a challenge grant, and 400 teams of scientists applied. Dr. Melvin Morse, his team was one of 6 teams who were chosen and funded. Dr. Melvin Morse is a pioneer in studying near-death experiences, or as we know, NDEs, and mediumship. These scientific groups were tasked with asking the other side questions, or we may call it the informational universe, or the spirit realm. Dr. Morse's team chose their mediums carefully and vetted several mediums for this experiment. One medium that was chosen for this project is an FBI agent. She worked as a medium for the FBI for 27 years. The mediums were given 4 questions to ask their guides or spiritual entity. And these questions were what Mr. Bigelow was interested in. Their results exceeded any expectations. So I'll just explain how the experiment was set up by the scientists. So Mr. Bigelow gave the questions that he wanted the mediums to ask their spirit guides and entities. And instead of giving them the actual questions to the mediums, the scientists assigned a number to each question. They gave the number to the medium, so they did not know the question. The mediums just asked their spirit guides or entities to answer a question for number 293-54816. Okay, so they were it was like a blind study. They didn't know what the question was. So an example for question 293-54816 might have been something like this. In the last 150 years, has mankind failed to achieve good spiritual progress? They gave the medium the number for these questions. And Dr. Morse was astonished at the replies the mediums received from Spirit. The answer from Spirit came back, yes, humanity has failed. The spirit world has not failed. Mankind has lost virtue, a sense of spiritual connectedness. But it's not about winning or losing. As long as you think in terms of winning and losing, you will never progress. You must think in terms of oneness. The answer given by the spirits was obviously the answer to the question, and that the medium had no idea what they were really asking, since they were only given a number. From these test questions, Mr. Morse is convinced, or Dr. Morse is convinced, that afterlife exists and there can be no doubt. Their scientific experiment conclusively proves that. When you give a number to the medium and they give you a lengthy, detailed answer to the question linked to that number, obviously the medium has contacted some sort of entity. It is wonderful that getting messages from the spirit world or the other side was scientifically tested. But what good does it do when the results of this scientific experiment does not get on the news or told to the world? How many of you have heard about this Bigelow Institute of Consciousness Studies? Yay, okay, wonderful. We do have a few hands. Wonderful, good. So, if you haven't, then just think how fortunate you are being here at a spiritualist service, because at spiritualism, we do not need to hear about another scientific experiment proving mediumship, because every week we are given evidential readings at services, at Sunday services, that proves the continuity of life. Amen.